So recently, I posted a video about Assertio Holdings, ticker ASRT, which is a new investment idea of mine. This is a stock I'm also invested in, okay? So recently, I posted this video here, and someone left me this comment. So Cleric7788 left this comment. This company was named Depot-Med, but changed its name to Assertio to avoid responsibility for its illegal marketing of Lazanda fentanyl products. Sketchy looking company, in my honest opinion. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. That's a very important topic about this company, which, by the way, I did not cover in this video here, okay? In my first video about Assertio. Now, why didn't I cover this topic in my last video? Because when I first found this company, this scandal was pretty much already solved. I knew the company had a lawsuit related to opioids, but since it had already been settled by the time I discovered Assertio, I didn't really dig into the details of this case. However, in any case, today we are going to talk about this Depot-Med case Cleric7788 brought to us. So after all, is investing in Assertio Holdings a trap? Well, as I will explain, I don't think so. Now, before we begin, as always, nothing in this video is investment advice, okay? And with that, let's start. So first, what happened to Assertio Holdings? What exactly is Cleric7788 talking about? Well, he's referring to this piece of news here. Depot-Med joins ranks of scandal-plagued pharmas, rehabbing their reputations with a name change. Now, please note that this news is from 2018, okay? And we also have this piece of news here. Depot-Med Inc. announces corporate name change to Assertio Therapeutics. Now, please note that in this news here, the company changed its name to Assertio Therapeutics. And I am invested in Assertio Holdings. And soon you will understand why that matters. But okay, so what actually happened? So from what I understand, Assertio, back around 2017, when its name was still Depot-Med, right? So Depot-Med was accused of improperly promoting its medications. So for example, they had a drug called Lazanda, which contained an extremely potent opioid called fentanyl. Besides, they also had another drug called Nucynta, which also contained a very powerful opioid. And apparently, what Depot-Med was doing was trying to promote these extremely potent drugs to patients for whom they were not really indicated. That's how I understood it. And please, well, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But based on what I've seen, that's essentially what happened, okay? But because of this, Depot-Med was hit with a lawsuit, which obviously created a massive risk, legal risk, right, for Assertio. And from what I understand, the lawsuit was filed under the False Claims Act. And according to Gemini, the potential penalty here could have been 3 times the damages, plus additional fines for each individual prescription. So, man, in the end, we could be talking here about a $1 billion risk, right? Maybe even more. I don't know the amount for sure, but it was clear the risk was enormous. And that's pretty much the reason why Assertio stock dropped from $2,000 in June 2015 to the current $9.6. What a massive drop, right? Besides, Assertio stock dropped so much because on top of the legal risk, you also had the loss related to Nucynta, which was one of the problematic drugs. But just for you to know, Depot-Med had acquired Nucynta in 2015 for about $1 billion, and in the end, it was sold for only around $400 million. So, we are talking about a loss here of roughly $600 million. So that's what this scandal was about. And for Assertio, or rather for Diplomat at the time, right? This episode represented almost complete ruin. And then, we had Assertio's Indocin phase, right? They managed to recover a bit with Indocin. However, eventually, Indocin got pretty much destroyed, right? By competition. And now we have the Rovadon and Sympazan phase. And here, let me tell you, it seems the company is really recovering now. But you see, looking at Assertio now is kind of interesting. Because you see, this stock has really suffered a lot over the past few years. I mean, this stock was really decimated, right? And many investors simply don't want to look to Assertio because, of course, they have this scandal in mind. However, as we'll see now, we don't have any legal risks anymore related to this opioid scandal. And why do I say that? Because, well, as we'll see now, in the second quarter of 2025, most of the legal risks were eliminated. As Assertio's former CEO, Brendan O'Grady, said, in the second quarter, we advanced each of our 5 core objectives and expect all to be complete or nearly complete by the end of the year. As a reminder, these include 1. Reducing our legal exposure, right? 2. Simplify our corporate structure and processes. 3. Prioritize Assertio's investment in growth assets. 4. Divest non-core assets where it makes sense. And 5. Use the strength of our balance sheet to close a strategic transaction. So, as we've just read here, reducing legal exposure was one of the company's main goals for 2025. And that's what they did. As we read here, starting with reducing our legal exposure, we have now settled or closed multiple prior legal matters, helping to remove both ongoing operation costs and future uncertainty from the business. Resolutions to date include the 2017 Qui Tam lawsuit, which refers to this opioid scandal. So as we read here, the company is done with that. That was left in the past. So resolutions to date include the 2017 Qui Tam lawsuit, the last remaining Glumetza antitrust action, and Spectrum's legacy Lowell security class action pending court approval. And this is one of the most important parts of the conference call. One of the key actions completed in the second quarter was the transfer of all our interest in our subsidiary Assertio Therapeutics to a third party, ATIH Industries LLC. Now, I don't know if you remember, but in the beginning of this video, I showed you that Diplomat had changed its name to Assertio Therapeutics, and that I was invested in Assertio Holdings. Now, why does that matter? Because as we've just seen, as we've just read here, Assertio Holdings transferred Assertio Therapeutics, which had all the opioids legal risks. So Assertio Holdings transferred Assertio Therapeutics to another company. So Assertio Therapeutics is not under Assertio Holdings structure anymore. So, in other words, this represents that all that massive legal risk is not with Assertio Holdings anymore. As we read here, as of today, Assertio Holdings nor any of its subsidiaries are named defendants in any opioid-related litigation. So this opioid scandal is not Assertio Holdings' problem anymore. So that's why I think that investing in Assertio Holdings today is not a trap. In the end, Assertio Holdings had to transfer 8.2 million to Assertio Therapeutics, its subsidiary, as we read here. But ultimately, the legal risk related to this opioid scandal was finally eliminated. And now the company can focus on what really matters, on its operations. So once again, that's why I don't think investing in Assertio Holdings is a trap. Because, again, we don't have the opioid scandal legal risk anymore. Okay? So, that's it for today, and see you next time.